I have friends, advisors, and business associates who say I should not tell you this. But this information is important, and I think you should know it. Born and raised in Hawaii. My mother was a registered nurse, had a PhD in education. He was also the superintendent of education for the state of Hawaii. What broke my heart money. That was downsized. I swore today we're focused on a thing called SAT, or Scholastic Arithmetic. Very important skills. Testing, whether you should be a object of money in schools. $10,000 to 16% with the same $10,000, $50, what you would get given that same 10. So when we go to school, we these financial statements or annual reports.
I founded a company called People. Today that company is about $1.6 billion. I'm a graduate of the University of Texas. I got an MBA in finance. I've been a turnaround specialist. Call me and ask me to things about being a turnaround specialist is that sometimes there's that has to get eliminated. People that I know haven't bothered or figured out a way to go learn. Spend the time and understand how to go make money with money. And that's what the rules of the game for money. One of the things my children, especially the rules of the game, corporate downsizing by some.
When I studied accounting in school, enough for me to understand financial intelligence. I soon realized the main cause of financial struggle was due to confusion of an asset and a. I looked in the dictionary at the definitions and I got very confused. So I made up my own. And my definition of a liability. So what caused my mom and dad to struggle financially? Asset, yet by this definition. And if these definitions are still too confusing, I simplify it even further. If I stop working, feed me, and eat. So the most important thing about being financially literate is understanding a thing called cash. And a middle-class person and figuring out which. So I will show you. Generally a poor person, all they have is a job. The income comes in from the job. goes down, they pay their rent, clothing, a little food, and goes out the expense column. Of a poor person. Person is a little bit different. Mortgage, they probably have car payments, they probably have credit card payments. It comes up again through the expense column. Here are the cash flow patterns of a poor person versus the cash flow pattern of the rich is different. The cash flow pattern of the rich flows from the asset column, and the middle class are focusing. What the rich are focusing on is the asset column, is the great secret of the rich. Every time money comes middle class, if when this dollar comes in and right out, you're choosing to be go and buy a bigger house, a new car, or you take a card, then what you are choosing. And if you choose instead to be rich, poor, middle, choosing to be a rich person, but the choice is up to you. Story about when he was MBA. A gentleman named Ray Kroc came to speak to the class. What business am I in? And the whole class just cracked up. You know, they said, what business you're in? Your business. My business is in sales. He basically sold hamburgers, but his business was real estate. When I ask most people, what business are you in? Let's say I ask a banker, they say, oh, their profession is being a doctor. You working for money. Is they're not minding their own business. They're minding somebody else's business. So looking at this chart one more, your job or being an employee, somebody else, you're working for the shareholders. Over here, you're working for is a tax department. Here, if you own a house, you're working for the bank because you got a mortgage. Rich, happy, and successful, you've got to mind.
Corporate America is very exciting for someone in my position. Woman and doing very well, and I'm very happy with my job, but it takes very long hours and hard work. America. Cash flow helped me realize that I was spending a lot of time making other and that I was stuck in a rut. Learning experience for me.
My name is Jeff Bassett. I'm an investment. I have a degree in economics. Between 40 and 50. I have no plans of working past 30 at the islands, trading up, and cash flow show.
So what causes financial work? What they do is they have husband and wife working, and maybe one of them will take a second job. And so what they're focusing on is in the income column is that as your income goes up, So you pay more in taxes, but you feel you've got this raise and it's worth it, and so what you do is you go up because your banker or this goes up here. Your liability's up, and but does this go away? The answer is no. The answer is no. And that's what causes money, but having money work for you, even if you lost track of liabilities and no assets.
In the past, what we would do is an obsolete thought. That's an obsolete. Our educational system has been set up to prepare us to be really good employees. That no longer. Discovering is that the life of a company as well as the life 3 years. So that means that we have to look at different ways, and we need to look at our education, and we need to look
What we'll do is they focus on the income. Income comes in, and the first line income comes up this way. A fuel filter on a gas station or several corporations. And what a corporation then does is bleed off as many expenses as possible. And that's how the person who was an employee or a W first. So what their expenses, what they do is they earn, they spend as much as they can, and they're and what the poor and middle class, government taxes them, then they try and spend or live on what's left. And
Wayne and I own one of the and one thing we find about people and students who are in, but they don't know the basics of it.
We're so excited about having the game cash flow, because now we can teach the students more about the fundamentals of accounting, investments, and finance, so they'll have the tools that they need to go out and actually do that in the real world.
so one of the secrets of the rich is how they print money. Let's say they buy a house they take back in the form of a note or an it now $30,000. Doing it is you take a piece of land, $100,000 for this house on the property, so I chopped off 4 acres and sold up the land into 3 parcels, selling each parcel for $100,000. Again, taking it back in a note. So over here, I had now invented $300,000. Example I do is called an IPO, initial public offering. Seed money into a company I'm forming. $10,000 comes out to 1 million shares. The moment the company goes public, let's say goes up to $1, taxes on until such time as I cash the money. So these are some money. And why the hard time is what they do. Try and save something, it goes through a thing called their tax before it can come into this savings. So the class has such a hard time. Their asset column.
Really nice to have a having fun. So particularly interesting to see how the game reflected real. I'm an attorney. Once upon a time, taught the basic financial created by the game.
And so my background, I'm a CPA, and what was particularly fun for me was I was able to help. So it was fun because we were able to learn.
I'm a college student. In school, you really don't learn much about money. I learned a lot about investing money and financing, and I really enjoyed it. It was
Years ago, I wrote a book called If You Want to Be Rich and Happy, Don't Go to People think I'm anti-education. Nothing could be further from my profession is education. I'm a teacher. I love learning. And so I think scholastic was important as well as professional secretary. Very important skill. Intelligence is excruciatingly it's just the fundamental foundation. But always remember this also, no matter which poor, rich, or middle class, the choices of learning is repetition. The more you play this game, the richer you will become.